What? We're up to the second part of this presentation, where we're going to now go through the items that we just mentioned before, one by one, to show how to kosher. And I'm going to begin with the stovetop over here. So the stovetop over here, as we can see, a regular stove has, like this. You can see it's not hot. Okay. Has a stove over here where the fire comes out from, and the grate where we put the food on. Now, what's the problem? You're going to ask, what would be the problem with such an item? And the answer is that when I have food, let's say I have noodles or have what is called mushroom barley soup that's cooking on the stove, and the water sometimes overflows and it goes into the metal on the grate, and sometimes it spills directly on the food itself. So there is a mahloket in the poskim. However, we try to kosher as much as possible. Once hametz has fallen onto it, so we have to kosher it. Besides the fact that many people warm up pita directly on the grate, which is another story by itself. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's 100% wrong. It could be an issue, but that's a fact that people do. They do warm up pita directly on the grate, and therefore the hametz is absorbed inside the grate. So for this reason, we must kosher the grate and the stovetop. So we'll begin with the stovetop. The way to kosher it is, since only water spills on it, nobody puts bread directly on this piece. It's actually pretty hot. We just took it out of there. So what we would do is, we have the water over here, as you can see. It's bubbling. Let me just move away some of the soap. And you can see how it's bubbling. Can you see it? Yeah? Okay. So while it's bubbling, we would take the piece that needs to be koshered and, it's pretty hot, place it inside. And you see it's still bubbling. That's sufficient, because since it came in through liquid, it comes out through liquid. This is what we would call hagala. And I'm going to do the same now with the other pieces. Be careful not to burn yourself. There's no mitzvah in burning yourself. Even though there's hametz on your hand, there's no mitzvah actually putting your hand in there. So you be safe, Rabotai, and put a spoon inside. Make sure everything is kasher Pesach. You see, when I put it in, the bubbling stops for a little bit because of the coolness of the metal. But then it comes back to bubble. And I'm going to do the same with the third piece. Obviously, the fourth piece, which is under the pot right now, I can't do right away. And once it's bubbling already, as you can see right now, yes? Okay, so then, this is it. We're done. We're kosher. You have to dip it 3 times. It's fine. I can now remove the items from inside the pot. Here's piece number 1 and 2. Maybe I think even 3. I pulled it out in one shot. No. Okay? Again, be careful. And you can put it right down, and it's fine. Preferable, which I'm going to do right now, is that after I removed it from the hot water, to rinse it with cold water, as I'm going to show right here by the sink. And we're fine. It's preferable. Is it an obligation? It's not an obligation, but it is preferable to do such a thing. And here we've done the stove top. Okay, this is the stove top. And we still have now the grates. The grates need, according to a lot of poskim, they need to have libun hamur. Okay? Why? Because since you put pita directly without any liquid, so the hametz has become absorbed inside of here directly and without any liquid, and therefore it has to come out also through libun. And one could accomplish this by placing it in the oven when he does a self-clean. Now the oven itself we're going to talk about soon, but I'm just going right now through the grates. Once you're koshering the oven in the same method which would require to kosher the grates, so therefore placing the grates inside the oven will be sufficient to remove the hametz from on them. And once you place them like this flat, where the top is exposed, and this way we've koshered now the stovetop. However, one more point, which we usually don't try to kosher because it's not so practical, which is the rest of the stovetop, which you see here is covered with aluminum foil. This metal piece over here, it's quite hard to do it in a proper way, so the best thing would be to use heavy-duty aluminum foil to cover it well. This is not so covered well because we're still before Pesach. And then once you cover every part very well, you could use a little bit of tape If it's covered with heavy duty aluminum foil, your stovetop should be set and ready for Pesach.